Hey everybody, it's Chris, and I've been looking at the Paladin subclasses in the 2024 Player's Handbook, going through the various features and giving them ratings. And I looked at the Oath of Glory already and the Oath of the Ancients. Today I am looking at the Oath of Vengeance. And if you watched my last video on the Ancients Paladin, I mentioned that I'm presenting these in the order from least to most powerful, in my opinion. And of course, this is all opinion based. But that means Oath of Vengeance, in my opinion, is the second most powerful paladin. And Oath of Devotion is the most powerful paladin. And I will explain why I think it's the most powerful when we get to that one. But today we're looking at Oath of Vengeance, which I also think is very good. So here's the thematics for Oath of Vengeance. It says, punish evildoers at any cost. The Oath of Vengeance is a solemn commitment to punish those who have committed grievously evil acts. When evil armies slaughter helpless villagers, when a tyrant defies the wills of the gods, when a thieves' guild grows too violent, when a dragon rampages through the countryside, at times like these, paladins arise and swear an oath of vengeance to set right what has gone wrong. These paladins share the following tenets: show the wicked no mercy, fight injustice and its causes, aid those harmed by injustice. And of the Paladin subclasses in the Player's Handbook, at least, I would say this is the one that fluxes maybe the most heading towards evil. Even though they are committed to hunting down evil, the whole idea of no mercy and whatever the cost, the enemies will be punished. It at least goes to kind of lawful neutral, in my opinion. And you could potentially even make a cause for lawful evil, I think. But of course, in D&D, you can choose your alignment. That's just the way I read the thematics. So let's start going through the features. So I'm going to go through all the levels for which they gain features and give one rating. So at level 3, we get multiple features, one rating for both combined. So first, let's look at our expanded spell list. So we get our Oath of Vengeance spells, level 3, 5, 9, 13, and 17. Level 3, we get Bane and Hunter's Mark. And this is an okay list. Hunter's Mark gets a lot of hate these days. I will say that on a Paladin, those bonus actions are hard to fit. Because just playing a Paladin in the 2024 rules, you'll find that your bonus action is called for almost all the time. Even something like Divine Favor, which is one bonus action, is difficult to cast in combat. So Hunter's Mark, which can take multiple bonus actions because you're using a bonus action to switch targets in addition to casting it, that's tough. Also, it is concentration. So we're using up our concentration. We're eating up our bonus actions for a d6 damage on our attacks. That said, if I'm a 3rd level paladin, I have 3 first level spell slots, and I don't get any back on a short rest. So they're pretty few and far between. I might not even have a single spell per combat. Hunter's Mark does have a good duration, and so I could see casting it at that point. But once I get to higher levels, I mean, I'm maybe using some kind of smite spell every single round. So I just don't have a bonus action plus my concentration to use for a d6 damage. It's just not there. So I don't think it's a particularly strong spell for paladins. In fact, I think it's a worse spell for paladins than for rangers. No question about it. And then we have Bane. And now Bane is an action, and that's tough when you are a martial character or I guess in Paladin's case, a half martial character who is using weapons. Then we want to be able to take the attack action on our turns, generally speaking. So setting up a Bane spell is going to require an action in combat, and that is tough to do. So it's a decent spell when it lands. Whether it fits really nicely on a Paladin, I don't know. So I don't love their level 3 options. Level 5, they get Whole Person. Now, Whole Person, of course, only works on humanoids. So we're going to be fighting a lot of things that aren't humanoids, and then Whole Person doesn't work. but we're going to be fighting humanoids once in a while. And if you land a hold person, it's fantastic because it's paralyzation, which is just one of the worst conditions you can have. So if you can land a hold person, it can be pretty good. It has a good upcast, but it's tough to upcast when you're dealing with a half spell slot progression. But I think it's an okay spell to have as a freebie, right? Hold person is always really tough to prepare because you don't know when you're going to be coming up against humanoids, and those spells that you put in those preparation slots, that's valuable, and it's tough to do for spells that can be circumstantial. But when you get them for free, they're there when you need them. And so I think it's okay. And then we have Misty Step, and Misty Step is normally a spell I just love. And I talked about this in my Ancients Paladin video because they get Misty Step as well. That I think it's a little less valuable for a Paladin because at level 5, we have a free casting of Find Steed. And that's only an action to cast. And then we can just mount the steed, and the steed, we can just choose the one, the Fey Steed, and then we can get a 90-foot teleport that works similar to a Fey Step. Plus, we have the Found Steed. Now, it's only one use, but, if you cast a spell again, like the Find Steed spell again, you could do it again. So Misty Step, it's using the same level spell slot as a Find Steed. Never mind the fact that we can cast Find Steed for free for one time per day. So we're less likely to need Misty Step than another character. Now, it was mentioned in the YouTube comments on the Ancients Paladin. Somebody mentioned that, but Find Steed is not always applicable because in some dungeons, a mount just isn't going to work. And that's fair enough. There are some situations where Misty Step is going to work better than Find Steed for sure. I just pointed it out because there is a little bit of ability to teleport built into the Paladin already that other classes don't have. And that's why other classes might benefit more from Misty Step. It's like getting Misty Step on your Cloud Giant Goliath or your Aladrin or your Shattered Kai. It's good to have, but I already have something built in to do something similar, so it's a little bit less valuable. That's what it comes down to. And when I am using my mount, Misty Step just doesn't work, or it doesn't work as well because I can't move my mount with me. Then we get to level 9, and we get Haste and Protection from Energy, and this is the exact same list we saw with the Glory Paladin. I don't know why they decided to give them the exact same spells at level 9. I would have preferred a little bit of variance there, just to keep, our options distinct from each other. And so I talked about these before, and I'm just going to briefly mention that Haste, if you are thinking that Haste is a great spell for your Paladin to cast on themselves so they can get another attack in combat, it's not. The problem is it's using your concentration, and you go into combat, and you're a Paladin, so you're in melee, you're taking damage, and if you lose concentration, then you will lose your turn. And that one extra attack you were getting just isn't going to pay off. So Haste, I don't think, is a great addition. Though I do think Haste has value as a spell for creating a lot of movement when it's needed. And you can cast Haste on your mount, and then you can get just a ton of movement out of your mount. So it has its place. Protection from Energy, on the other hand, I'm not sure has a place. It is just a bad spell. In the 2024 rules, and I've said this before, I think it should have had no concentration. They kept the concentration on. Concentration, 3rd level spell slot for one kind of resistance, I don't think is worth it. And then we get to level 13 and we get Banishment. Banishment's a decent spell. And Dimension Door. And Dimension Door is a decent spell. And you can bring along your steed using your Dimension Door. So I think level 13 is kind of the highlight here. If I am playing Oath of Vengeance and I'm looking at this spell list, that's the level I'm looking forward to. Then level 17, we get Hold Monster. So that's like Hold Person, except without the humanoid restriction. All or Nothing uses our action, but it is really good if we can land it. And Scrying, which is very, very utility. And by level 17, I mean, it's pretty late for that kind of utility. Your spellcasters in the party have been able to cast that kind of spell for a long, long time already. I don't think this list is fantastic. Gotta be honest. Level 13, I think, does stand out as very nice. The rest of the list, it's not terrible, but I don't think it's that strong. And that brings us to Vow of Enmity. And I think this is the feature that people associate most with the Vengeance Paladin. This feature, of course, was around in 2014, and it has gotten better actually in 3 ways over 2014, though it has gotten worse in 1 way. So I'm going to go over all 3 ways it got better and the 1 way it got worse, and that's kind of hidden. But it says, when you take the attack action, you can expend 1 use of your channel divinity to utter a vow of enmity against a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself. You have advantage on attack rolls against the creature for 1 minute or until you use this feature again. If the creature drops to 0 hit points before the vow ends, you can transfer the vow to a different creature within 30 feet of yourself. No action required. So here are the 3 ways it's gotten better. And Vow of Enmity was always considered pretty good because advantage is a big deal in D&D. It means you hit a lot more often. Here are the ways it's gotten better. First off, when you take the attack action, you can just do this. You don't need to use your bonus action anymore. You used to have to use your bonus action. And this is really important in the 2025 rules because Paladins are going to be using their bonus action every round. I am playing a Paladin right now, and I always use my bonus action. You just have enough spell slots that you can, if you just want to do different kinds of smites on all your turns, maybe you want to do some extra damage, and then maybe you want to shove creatures, or you want to blind creatures, or you want to give advantage to attack creatures. It's your smite spells that allow you to do all these things, and they're just going to eat up all your bonus actions. And so you doing that bonus action for Vow of Enmity would be tough in their new rules. But they've removed that. They've just said, as long as you take the attack action, which we will be taking pretty much all the time anyways. So if we're already doing the action, it's not really costing the action. It's just free. The second thing that makes it better is that we can change targets. So in the old version, you use your Vow of Enmity, and then once that creature was down, your Vow of Enmity was done. But now, as long as you're still within that 1 minute and you drop that enemy, you can switch to a new enemy. And that also doesn't eat up a bonus action. It just allows you to basically have a 1 minute combat where you're always going to have advantage as long as you continue to attack the creature that you have a Vow of Enmity on. If you want to switch targets, that could be a problem. And that can happen. Right? Sometimes you're attacking a creature in combat. Your intention is to continue attacking them until they go down. But things happen. They teleported away. They turned invisible and got away. And now you've got other creatures in front of you and you need to get rid of them first. You could lose your Vow of Enmity for a few rounds because you're not attacking the creature that it's set upon. But nevertheless, being able to switch targets most of the time means you should be able to attack with advantage the entire combat in most combats. Then, final way it's better is that we have multiple channel divinities. So this was always a big deal with a 2014 Vengeance Paladin to be able to do this. Well, now we'll be able to do it twice before taking a short rest. And then each time we take a short rest, an additional use, just as before. And when we get to level, I think it's 11, we'll get a third use. So we'll be able to do this significantly more often. Now let's talk about the way it's worse. The way it's worse is advantage is just less valuable than it used to be. Most of the time, and I do mean most of the time, almost all the time, I would see Vengeance Paladins take the Great Weapon Master feat, the old version, that gave you a -5 to hit for +10 damage. And the big thing about that was you really wanted advantage on your attacks because that -5 to hit, you needed something to overcome that, and advantage could help do that. So it was really important to get that extra damage from Great Weapon Master. Now Great Weapon Master gives you a lower bonus to damage, but no penalty to hit, so it's less valuable in that regard. The other reason it's less valuable is advantage is more common these days. Your character, your Vengeance Paladin, might have multiple ways to give themselves advantage that they didn't used to have. They could be using a weapon with a Vex property. That could give them advantage on their attacks. They could be using a weapon with a Topple property. That could give them advantage on their attacks. They could apply a Shining Smite to an enemy. That automatically gives advantage on attacks. Didn't used to. There's also, of course, other ways that other characters might give you advantage. There's just things that can happen in combat that can give you advantage. Advantage is fairly cheap for a Paladin. So getting advantage, it's just less valuable than it used to be. But it's not without value. You have a Vex weapon. That doesn't mean you have advantage on every attack. If you have a Topple mastery, that's not advantage on every attack. If you have Shining Smite, that's something you have to set up, and it uses your concentration. So just being able to just give yourself advantage is still nice. And it's still an above average feature. I just wanted to explain why I don't think it's the most powerful feature a Paladin can get. And overall, I think level 3 gets 4 stars. I think Vengeance Paladin is above average at this level, though not at the top of the heap. So let's look at level 7. And we have Relentless Avenger. Your supernatural focus helps you close off a foe's retreat. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, you can reduce the creature's speed to 0 until the end of the current turn. You can then move up to half your speed as part of the same reaction. This movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Now, I just ran, as a DM, a 19th level one-shot where a Vengeance Paladin used this to great effect to prevent me from moving the big enemy to the guy I wanted to kill. And so that was just a massive moment to be able to do that. It's like having the Sentinel feat, right? On the other hand, opportunity attacks aren't that common. They come up, but they don't come up all the time. You could play sessions where you don't get a single opportunity attack. And so this being only opportunity attacks benefiting from this means I wouldn't expect it to come up a huge amount. When it does, if they got an opportunity attack from you, then that probably means they're trying to move away from you. And so moving their speed to 0 is going to be big every single time. But nevertheless, it just doesn't happen all that often. So I think it's really good when it comes up. But it doesn't come up enough to justify even giving it 3 stars. So I'm giving it 2 stars. And that will bring us to level 15 and Soul of Vengeance. Immediately after a creature under your effect of Vow of Enmity hits or misses with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to make a melee attack against that creature if it's within range. Now, you will be using your Vow of Enmity by level 15. You will have 3 uses of Channel Divinity, 1 back on a short rest. I would imagine you'll be using Vow of Enmity on pretty much every fight you're in. If you are on just a really long adventuring day or something like that, or it's minor combats and there's a whole bunch of them, that can happen, you might not be using it all the time. But you're going to certainly be using it most of the time at a minimum. So you will pretty much always have a creature under your Vow of Enmity, and it's probably within your reach because that's the creature you're concentrating on. And it's probably doing attacks. Not necessarily. It depends on the creature you're fighting. But probably it's going to be doing attacks. And when that happens, you're basically guaranteed a reaction attack. And I will also mention that at level 15, Paladins already had got their D8 extra damage on attacks at level 11. And although you can't, cast a bonus action spell like a Smite spell with your reaction attack, you will benefit from that D8 extra damage, which is Improved Divine Smite, I think it's called, or Improved Smites. So you will get that. So it does improve your damage with that reaction attack. And yeah, this is going to come up a lot. Now, it does mean that when you make your character, you're going to want to be thinking about, especially once you get to level 15, about what you're doing with your reaction, because you probably want to do this. And so if you have things like the shield spell or the absorb elements spell or other kinds of reactions, they might conflict with this. So just be aware of that. When the rules first came out for 2024, I looked at 2-weapon fighting and a Vengeance Paladin, and I remember thinking after I finished that video saying I should have taken Defensive Duelist on that build. I think I would definitely take Defensive Duelist. Well, Defensive Duelist is going to eat up reactions. At level 15, that's going to hurt because it would conflict with this ability. Nevertheless, this is good. This is good. This is a whole bunch of reaction attacks, and I gave it 4 stars. And that brings us to the capstone. And the capstone is called Avenging Angel. And let me bring it all up. It says, as a bonus action, you gain the benefits below for 10 minutes or until you end them, no action required. This is pretty standard for the new player's handbook. Oath of Ancients was different. It was only a 1-minute duration, but the other 3 subclasses all are bonus action for 10-minute duration. And that is better than it used to be. In the 2014 rules, the 20th level features generally took an action to set up. So being able to set them up as a bonus action means you can do it in combat and still take the attack action. Yes, you can't smite and use this at the same time, but this is going to be better than a smite. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. You can also restore your use of it by expending a 5th level spell slot. That's also something that wasn't available in the 2014 rules. It was once per long rest, and that's it. At level 20, you will have multiple 5th level spells. If you wanted to, you can expend them to be able to use this feature again. So this is what it does for us. First, we get flight. You sprout spectral wings on your back, you have a fly speed of 60 feet, and you can hover. So this is good flight. This is also 10-minute flight, and it's also level 20. I'll point out that you've had a flying mount since level 13. I will also point out that magic items exist in this game, and there's a really good chance by level 20 you have some other method to fly. So I do like flight. And I do think 60-foot move speed with flight is good, and hover is good. But this is not as attractive as it is when you get it at level 11, for example, or even 14. Level 20 is really late to be getting flight if you hadn't had it already. And then we get Frightful Aura. Whenever an enemy starts its turn within your aura of protection, that creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or have the frightened condition for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. Attack rolls against a frightened creature have advantage. Now, I do want to mention that your aura at level 20 is not a 10-foot aura. It is a 30-foot aura. That means there's a really good chance you might have multiple creatures starting their turn in your aura. Here's my problem with it. Frightened, wisdom saving throw, those aren't your best things at level 20. The immunity to frightened condition is just more common as you go up in challenge rating. And I was just looking before I started this video. I just wanted to satisfy my curiosity. So I looked at, in the monster manual, challenge rating 20 to 30 creatures. How many of them were immune to frightened? And 12 of them were immune to frightened out of like 25 or something. So about half of them were just straight out immune to frightened. Another thing I can tell you is that we're used to Constitution being the worst saving throw to target, but that's not true when you're at level 20. What happens with the new Monster Manual, at least, is that we see Constitution be the worst save to target at lower levels, and as we go up in level, Wisdom becomes worse and worse and worse, and it ends up being a worse save to target than Constitution. So at level 20, targeting Wisdom is actually worse than targeting Constitution. So this is the worst saving throw to target for a condition that creatures are often immune to, and of course, legendary resistances. I don't think you're going to frighten a whole lot of creatures, and that's what it comes down to. So we have a Frightful Aura that I think just wrong saving throw, wrong time to get it, and flight really late to get it. And, you know, this is the kind of feature that if they got it at level 11, I'd be raving over it. But level 20, it's just late for these things to come on. So I do think this one is below average. If I look at the other Paladin subclasses in the player's handbook, I actually think this is the weakest of all 4. And I'm giving it 2 stars because it's not terrible. You can have a terrible capstone. This is not it. It is okay, but it is just weaker than average. So it gets 2 stars. So if we look at the total here, we have 2 stars at level 20, 4 at level 15, 2 at level 7, and 4 at level 3. So we actually average out to 3 stars per level. You know what else averaged out to 3 stars per level? Glory did. Ancients did. And now Vengeance does. The reason I consider Vengeance more powerful than Glory or Ancients is because Vengeance gets 4 stars at level 3. And both those subclasses I gave 2 stars at level 3. And I think that's the most important level, because that's when you become the subclass. And then you have level 3, 4, 5, and 6, where you're either a lower than average subclass or a higher than average subclass before they even out again. So I think Vengeance is more powerful because of when the powerful features come on, not because they have more powerful features than the other 2 subclasses I've covered. The exception to the rule will be the Devotion Paladin, which I think is just straight out more powerful than the other subclasses. And I've been playing a Oath of Devotion Paladin since October of last year in a regular campaign. We play every 2 weeks. But nevertheless, it's been getting close to a year now that I've been playing this character. And yeah, Devotion, I've never regretted taking Devotion, I'll tell you that. And I look at these features and I just think of the things my character can do. And I think, not as good. Not as good. So this is why I'm going to be covering Devotion last rather than first, because I'm saving the best for last. So that will be my next Paladin video, and I hope you will join me for that. Otherwise, until next time, I am going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.